Alright, hey guys, so my name is Mitch, Mitchell Nelson. This is my testimony on what led me into this truth of the true names of the Father and the Son. So, I will start this just by saying, a little background on me. I grew up in Wisconsin. My parents, my mom, actually I grew up mostly with a single mom. My mom and my dad separated when I was really young, like a year old. So it was me and my mom for a lot of years. My mom, her parents were very religious, and so she had some bad experiences growing up in the church and some things that happened there. So she was never really, she always believed in, we call it God and Jesus, but she never really forced us to go to church or anything like that, just because of her bad experiences growing up in a very religious household. So, but even so, the rest of my family is very, church-going Christians. So I grew up with a lot of, going to Sunday school once in a while and stuff, and I learned the gist of, the Bible story and what they taught in church. And so I remember even as a little kid reading the scriptures, and particularly the book of Revelation always fascinated me, even from a young age. So I would read that, and of course I didn't understand a lot of it at the time, but it always fascinated me, and I was always kind of drawn to it, and especially the words of the Master, in the four Gospels, as they're called. But so, like I said, I kind of grew up in a more laid-back household as far as religion was concerned, though. And I started going to church again. I would say a few years after. Well, I'll back it up. So, right around the time that I turned, 18, I really started kind of getting interested in, seeking the truth. I was into like a lot of conspiracy theories, at least researching them. Not that I believed all of them, because there's some pretty ridiculous ones out there, but I was always interested in kind of finding out what was really going on versus what we were told, and the official story on things. And I guess I'll say that for a couple years there, I kind of lived pretty wild, kind of did my own thing for a couple years. I always felt a relationship with, I knew there was a creator. I always knew there was a creator and acknowledged that there was a creator, because the way I felt was that there's no way this all happened just by mistake or by accident. And I knew that I always felt that there was a connection to something spiritual or something beyond myself. I always kind of had that intuitive understanding that there was something bigger than myself out there. And I kind of had this feeling like throughout my life where I could not I could never drift too far, or get into anything too bad without basically kind of getting caught. It always kind of seemed like there was a flashlight on me, like from up above. It's like I could never get away with anything, no matter how smart I thought I was being, or or no matter how careful I was and not getting caught with different things. But basically, yeah. So that's how I knew. And even from a young age, as a teenager, I knew that there was, I felt like there was a call on my life. I just didn't know what it was. I had no idea. And but I'll kind of fast forward basically to. That's just a little background, but I'll kind of fast forward to, a few years ago, when I met my now ex-wife. We're currently divorcing, but I had walked into this church. My mom had suggested that I go check out this church. She was really worried about me at the time, for good reason. But I did. I went out and checked out this church, and there was my now ex-wife up on stage. She was a worship leader, and basically I walked in, saw her, and was like, oh wow, she's a very beautiful woman, and we kind of just hit it off right away. She was engaged at the time that we met, and she ended up breaking off her engagement with her then fiance, and that's kind of how our relationship started. And and so we got married a few months, like 8 months later after we met. It was very quickly. Her parents were associate pastors in her church, so I knew I was gonna have to marry her to make it legit. But then, so like I said, we were married for a little while, and probably about a year when we decided to have our first child. We had our first child, and then kind of fast forward. I'll just fast forward to the pertinent information here. Basically, I was going to church with her, and I was actually playing on the worship team with her. And the thing I will say about my experience in the church up to just about a year ago was that it always felt ingenuine to me, like when I was up there. Although I did feel a connection to the Creator, or how some would say connection to Source, connection to the Creator, the Father. For whatever reason, it always felt forced for me to go up there on stage and worship in the way that they did in the church. But anyway, just trying to think here. So again, I'll just fast forward basically to about a year ago, when I started really actually it was 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, after my wife and I had our first child. We have two now. We ended up going to this youth camp, and it was one my wife had been going to her whole life, and we had gone up there, and basically I was a first-time counselor up there. I was a counselor for a cabin, and this was a kind of camp where they were, some would call it Pentecostal, but they were doing a lot of the stuff like, the slain in the spirit, or, like drunk in the spirit, where some of the leaders or the pastors or whatever were acting, all goofy and intoxicated. And it was just, there was some stuff there that was going on that just really didn't feel or look right to me at all. And it really kind of bothered me. And I remember distinctly thinking, is this really the Creator? I remember distinctly asking that question. Is like, and it didn't seem real. It didn't seem authentic. I thought to myself that if the Creator and his power is real, like I knew he was in my heart, I don't think this is how. And not that I'm anyone, and that's kind of how I thought of it at the time. I mean, who am I? But that just wasn't, it didn't feel real, it didn't feel authentic, it didn't feel like that was from the Creator. I just felt like if that was the power of the Creator working, it would be serving a purpose. And at that time, when I was looking at people being put down and all that stuff, it didn't really seem to me, or like drunk in the spirit, or acting all goofy and laughing and stuff, it didn't seem like that really was serving a purpose, a divine or set apart purpose. It kind of just looked like theater to me, basically, is what I'll say. And so that really bothered me, and I really struggled with it. But my wife, that her church, they were kind of into all that stuff too, just not as much as at this camp that we went to. And so, I kind of struggled with that for a little bit after we came back home. And, I really wanted to, at the time in my life, I've always kind of struggled with lust. And, even when I was a teenager, up until, not very long ago, things like pornography and just lust and lusting after women and all that stuff. That was something I struggled with. And I had prayed many times to Lord God Jesus and asked him to help me with that and take that away from me. I didn't want it. But it I was never able to really overcome that, in any significant way whatsoever. At least calling on those names, Lord God Jesus and whatnot. But what I will say is that what happened is, at the time, I kind of I was researching different spiritual traditions, different religious ideas and ideologies, such as, for example, Buddhism and Hinduism, and I just wanted to learn about how other cultures kind of approached spirituality. I was curious, and at the time I kind of had that thought that, well, there is a Creator. I like I said, that was an intuitive understanding that I had, but I didn't feel that what I was seeing, at least in the church, or like at that camp I was at, I didn't feel like that was really divine. I didn't feel like any of that was the Creator. And so, long story short, I was researching a lot of New Agey stuff, and kind of the mysteries, like the mystery traditions and the mystery schools, going back to like Egypt, ancient Egypt, and the Greek mystery schools and all that. I was looking into a lot of that, and even different philosophies, occult philosophies, and it was just curiosity, because I wasn't really getting what I felt was real in the church. And so what I ended up doing is, I was torn, because I basically reached a point where I was like, well, all this occult and this New Age stuff is very interesting to me. But I also wanted to serve the true Creator. I didn't want to go and do something that would upset or would hinder my relationship, or do something wrong in the eyes of the Creator. So what I did was, I actually prayed to Jehovah, because at the time that's what I thought the Father's name was. In the Bible, that's what they tell us his name is, and in the church. And so I prayed to Jehovah, and I basically said, Jehovah, if you are my Creator, if you are at the time I said God of the Scriptures, I want to serve you. I want to serve you with my life, but I need to know that you, Jehovah, are the God, the true God, the true Creator. So show me a sign, show me something, because what I saw, what I was seeing in the church, and what I saw at that camp that I went to, it didn't really seem like, that didn't really seem right to me. So I prayed that prayer to Jehovah, and I got nothing. nothing happened. and and so basically my decision after that was, well, I'm just going to seek the truth then, no matter what it is. I'm just going to go after whatever the truth is, and I'm going to follow that. And so I basically walked away from Christianity for a little while, for a short time. I ended up coming back later, and I'll get to that, but I basically walked away from the Bible and from Christianity, and I dove headfirst into New Age and occultism. Now, as far as occultism goes, for many of you don't know, like, a lot of that is, I'm sure some of you know, have an idea, but a lot of what I studied, I was mainly interested in the nature of reality, connecting with the divine, things like that, things of that nature. That's what really interested me about the occult, is because it was hidden. The word occult means hidden, so hidden knowledge. That's what I was interested in. And again, pursuing the truth. I wanted the truth, and so I thought that's where the truth would be. So I dove headfirst into that world, and in that world, there's a lot of, frankly, anyone who goes into the occult, it's a sea of information, and a lot of it is false information. A lot of it is very dark. There are kind of two sides to occultism. There's what they call the dark occultism and light occultism. They're both ultimately, or it's like light Luciferianism. Really, what occultism is rooted in is Luciferianism, light Luciferian and dark Luciferian. The whole idea is that you can become a god and become enlightened, whatever, through different means. And basically the two paths, the dark and the light, are different, supposedly different ways of attaining that goal, which of course we know you can't become your own god. But that's kind of what I was after. I wanted that enlightenment, or that, self-realization, and mostly I wanted the truth. I just wanted to know who the true creator was. If at that point I didn't know if there was a creator, because I prayed to supposedly the creator and he didn't answer. But I was praying to Jehovah. Well, anyway, I'm kind of getting off track here. Where that led me was actually to an occult organization, and I'm not going to mention them by name in this video, just because, frankly, I know these people, and I just would rather not. I would rather not mention them by name. But all you really need to know is that it is an occult organization, a secret society, similar to the Freemasons, where they study particularly magic, as in ritual magic, summoning entities, spirits, demons, divination, tarot, different things like that. And so after diving into that, I had been attending this organization. They had public, basically a sort of a ritual, similar to like the Catholic Church has, like Mass. They had sort of a similar thing like that, where anyone could just come and attend. And I was going to that. I'd gone to that a few times, and basically I had an experience where I learned that the devil was real. And I won't get too much into that. The important thing is I learned I was almost initiated into the secret society, and praise YaHuWaH that I was not initiated into that society. But basically what I really believe was that YaHuWaH allowed me to walk through this, because I learned a lot about occultism and about the kingdom of darkness in this time, and how they operate and the kind of people they really are. Because as I said before, I learned there in that occult world that the devil is real, and that his army is real. And I saw firsthand these wicked people who are his minions, and who are doing, basically doing his work for him, the enemy. I believe that's why YaHuWaH allowed me to walk through that, but he brought me out of it too before I could get too deep into it. But like I said, I was almost initiated into the secret society. Luckily, I had an experience that scared the living crowd out of me, and I ran out of there and I never went back. But as I said before, the important thing is that I knew that the devil, or Hashatan, was real. And so what happened after that was, and mind you, this whole time my wife, actually, she even went with me to some of these things, and to these rituals and stuff, and she was pretty supportive, oddly enough. Oddly enough, she was supportive of me at the time. But I left that, got out of that, and basically with this new realization that the devil is real, I went running right back to the church. And I said, well, if the devil is real, I know that at the time God is real, right? So I went back, except the difference is that compared to, before when I was in the church versus now, is I still had that mindset that I'm going to seek the truth no matter what it is. So I had gotten a little piece of the truth that the devil was real, and I knew that the devil's real, well, the creator's real too. So that was what I knew heading back into the church. And so naturally, since I was still seeking the truth, and I had those two pieces of information that I knew, that the devil is real, the creator's real, I started asking a lot of questions, to my pastor at the time, and I was really digging into the scriptures, and I was finding inconsistencies with what the church was doing, what the church was practicing, what they were saying, what was being taught, and what the scriptures were saying. And so I was asking questions, and they didn't really like that. That no one in the church liked my inquisitive mind. They always said, why do you worry about all that? They kind of tried to shut me down every time I would ask questions. And that really bothered me and made me honestly want to ask more questions. So I would dig into the scriptures more, and I would find more inconsistencies. I would find more things that didn't line up with what was happening in the church, what was being taught in the church. So eventually, one of the things that I discovered through reading the scriptures was that, and through various research too, because at the time I was still kind of a little bit into conspiracy theories, and what I came across was the flat earth. And so I did for about a couple days. I finally decided. I had mocked it before. I'd heard all the earth was flat, and I remember mocking that. However, one day I decided, I was like, you know what, I'll look into it. And so I did. And then when I realized, I spent about 3 days straight, like just hardcore researching the flat earth. And basically, once I realized after all the research, independent of actually going into the scriptures at this point, I realized that the earth, that we've been lied to about the shape of creation. And so at that point, I started digging into the scriptures and realized that it was scriptural too, that the scriptures actually revealed the same. And that, for me, was the moment when I realized that the scriptures are 100% true. The scriptures, the word is the truth, because I knew that the creator, when you understand that the shape of creation is not what you've been told, you realize that there's undoubtedly a creator, which I already knew. But then when I read it, when I looked in the scriptures, and it verified that it was not what we've been told and what we've been taught, it was at that point where I realized, wow, the scriptures are the truth. This is the true inspired word of the creator. And so then I dug in even deeper into the scriptures, and I really started getting into heated debates with my pastor, and it was actually causing strain in my relationship with my wife, because me and my pastor were actually getting into some, pretty intense arguments over things, because I was trying to, I would basically come to him and say, here, this is the truth, this is what the word says, the one that you were supposed to be teaching. And he would just try to shut me down, and I didn't like that. I didn't like it at all. And so, there were multiple things going on. But basically, once I realized that the word is the truth, and it is inspired of the Creator, like I said, that's when I really dug into the scriptures harder than I ever have in my life, because I took it seriously for the first time, like really seriously for the first time, and I started digging in, and I started reading about Revelation. I started going back to Revelation, and about Babylon, and I started learning about Babylon and the religious systems. And it wasn't long before I realized that the entire religious system, including the churches and the church I was going to, were a part of that Babylonian system. And at that point for me, I realized that I had to leave, that I could no longer take part in the church system. And this was a I kept learning, and it was at that point when I left that my relationship with my wife really started to become strained, because, as I said before, she was a worship leader, her parents were associate pastors, and here I was trying to explain to them why I left this church, due to the things that I had found in the scriptures. That was my reasoning, was because of what I had found in the scriptures and the research that I had done. And of course they didn't understand. And I stopped going to church with my wife, and that put even more strain on our relationship. But I was still just trying to bring her into this truth. Into the truth that I had at the time. Right around then was about the time that the names were revealed to me, the true names of the Father and the Son. And it was shortly after I came out of Babylon, because I knew that he had called me out. When I was still going to church, there was a brief period of time when I was still going to church, and I had this knowledge, and I was stuck. Like I knew that what the Creator was telling me to do. I knew he was telling me to come out of Babylon, and it wasn't a very long period of time, but I knew I had to be obedient. And I knew that he would barak me or bless me if I did. I knew that if I did what he said to do in his word, he was gonna take care of me. I knew it. And so I came out, and like I said, shortly after coming out of Babylon was when I received the revelation of the true names of the Father and the Son, YaHuWaH and YaHuShua. And what I always tell people is that it was a distinct feeling when I first heard the Father's name, YaHuWaH. It was so strange to me, because I distinctly felt as if I was remembering that was the Creator's name, even though I had never heard it before, at least to my knowledge in this body. I remembered that was his name as soon as I heard it. I said, that's his name. And so I received that knowledge with so much joy, and I felt so humbled that the Creator had saw fit to reveal this to me, and I was excited, and I wanted to tell my wife immediately, hey, this is the true name, and and I did, and I tried going to my wife and told her about the true name of the Father, YaHuWaH, and the true name of the Son, YaHuShua, and she did not receive it whatsoever. I tried explaining it to her in many different ways, that hey, that name Jesus was never his name. It could not have been his name, and the many different ways we have of logically concluding that was not his name. And she just did not, just completely rejected it. And so from that point, it was only a matter of time before I knew, and I remember praying shortly after receiving the knowledge of the names, the revelation of the names, that I remember praying to YaHuWaH. I remember saying, Father, I will give it all up for you. And I said, I know that it's possible that I might have to give up my wife, which was a very difficult thing for me, because I truly did love my wife, and I truly did want to spend the rest of my life with her. And I was always unwaveringly faithful to her, and I really did love her. And I was just trying to bring her into this truth, and she did not. She rejected it. So I knew that it was a possibility, with how enmeshed she was in that church and how that church was her life, that it was going to be a possibility, or even just a matter of time, before she left. And she did, shortly thereafter. And so after she left, I prayed to the Father, and I didn't know what to do. I was kind of stuck between this rock and this hard place, because we had 2 children. I didn't know whether to fight for my wife and our family, or basically to move on. I was stuck in this place of indecision. I wanted to fight for my wife. I loved my wife, and the point I got to is I had seen how cold my wife had grown towards me, how detached and just completely hardened towards me, which was difficult because we always had a very, very loving relationship, my wife and I. And what happened when I noticed this going on with how cold she had grown towards me, I just said, I had a feeling that there was something else going on. I just had a feeling that there was something going on that I didn't know about, and I had even confronted her about this, and I had said, hey, if there is someone else, or if anything like that's going on, please just have the respect for me to tell me, so that, if that is the case, I can just move on. Which she adamantly denied. And, she said, no, there's nothing going on. And she said, she made me feel bad about it. There's nothing going on. Why would you say that? Made me feel really bad for even suggesting such a thing. This was only a couple weeks after she had left. And so, immediately after this conversation, I prayed to YaHuWaH, because I was in distress. I didn't know what to do. And I said, YaHuWaH, if there is something going on here, I just ask that you would reveal it to me, and then I will know that I need to just move on, that this is over, and that you have other plans for me, another place you want to take me. And so I prayed to YaHuWaH, and I asked him that, please reveal this to me if there's something going on, like I had a feeling there was. Well, the very next day, I was at the house, and I was reading scriptures, and I went to go grab my laptop, our laptop, and I opened it up. I was just going to Google some scriptures, I'm pretty sure, and I opened it up, and there was my wife's Facebook page, and I saw on the bottom she had all these messages from a man, and I opened them up, and sure enough, there were inappropriate messages there. And so YaHuWaH answered my prayer immediately the next day. And at the time, obviously, I was pretty crushed, just because that was my wife, and she had just left and all that. So there was a short time where I had to deal with those emotions. But once I was able to work through those emotions, YaHuWaH gave me a resolve, because now I knew he had answered my prayer, and I knew what he wanted. I knew that this was a situation where he was he was removing a stumbling block, or he was removing her, because she was holding me back when I needed to dedicate myself completely to this truth. And I can see now with eyes wide open that he did this for me, and that this was a part of his plan to have me walk, and like I said, be completely, fully dedicated to this truth in these last days, because otherwise I would have not been strong enough. There's no way I would have been able to leave my wife, because I loved her too much. And I believe that YaHuWaH knew that, but he also knew that she was gonna hold me back, or prevent me from really walking this out completely and with full dedication to just serving YaHuWaH and his truth in these last days. So now, like I said, that's kind of the testimony right there, is just that, while it may sound bad, with my wife leaving and everything, since then I've been more free and full of peace, and I met my brethren. Okay, so I'll briefly tell the story of how I came into contact with warriors of the Ruwach and followers of the way. And so it was shortly after my wife left that I called, or I got a hold of Mike from Followers of the Way, and I just reached out to him because right after she left I was devastated, and I sent Mike a message and I told him what was going on, and immediately he put me in on a video chat with Followers of the Way, with guys from Warriors of the Ruwach, and all these guys. And I'll never forget what they said to me after I told my testimony. They told me, well, you found this truth before you found us, so we call you brother. And that, to me, I knew at that moment that I'd found my family. I'm getting choked up, but I knew at that moment that these people were my family and my brothers and sisters in the truth. And they helped me through that time period where I was dealing with the emotions of my wife leaving and all that. They helped me through it. They kept me, they built me up in the truth and in the scriptures. And like I said, once I prayed to YaHuWaH and he revealed to me what was happening with my wife and this other man, I confronted my wife about it, and at first she was very angry, kind of went off, but now actually my wife and I, we're at a position right now where we're both on the same page when it comes to the divorce. And so actually things are going very well. We have 50-50 custody of our children, and we get along great. We don't fight or argue, and I would say at this point we have a good, amicable relationship, and I praise YaHuWaH for that, because it's not always, it almost never is like that. So, but we actually do have a very working, amicable relationship. We work together with the kids, and so praise YaHuWaH for that. But then I just wanted to say one more thing, and this is kind of just an extra bonus and a recent development in my life that I'd like to share. For those of you out there that are maybe going through a similar situation, where you're dealing with separation, this is what YaHuWaH did for me. So just recently, I had prayed to YaHuWaH because I've accepted, the divorce with my wife, and that like I said, we're both on the same page there. I know that YaHuWaH has another place to take me, and just recently I had prayed to YaHuWaH and I had said, Father, you know that I will be alone and serve you if that is your will for me. You know that I'll do that, and I love you, and that's what I'll do if that is your will. But being a young man, I'm 25 years old. I also just prayed, but if it would be your will, to send me a woman who is after the truth, or at least, receptive or open to the truth, I would appreciate it. I would appreciate it. And so, because as I talked to you before, or as I told you before, I'd struggled with lust most of my life, and until I came into the knowledge of the names, I struggled with lust and pornography. But when I came into the revelation of the true names of the Father and the Son, it was like he just took that weight from me, and I have not touched pornography since, and it's not even an issue for me anymore. So, praise YaHuWaH and YaHuWaH for that. That's another piece of the testimony that I wanted to add in there and let you guys know as well, is that I've been freed of that thing that I had always prayed the Lord God Jesus to take away from me, and he never did. When I came into the knowledge of the true names, YaHuWaH took it from me, and now I don't even mess with that stuff anymore. So that's that's an awesome thing. Praise YaHuWaH. But where was I going with that? Oh, so I had prayed and asked for YaHuWaH, if it was his will, and I'd said if I'm supposed to be alone, and that's your will, I'm fine with it. But if it would be your will to send me a woman, I would also be fine with that. So I prayed that, and not a week later, actually right before coming here to Arizona to the Truth Fellowship, the night I met a girl, and I struck up a conversation with her, and we ended up going and grabbing some food, bite to eat, and I had explained to her the why I was going to Arizona, coming here, and about the true names of the Father and the Son. And when I told her that Jesus was not the Son's true name, she had asked me, well, what is his real name? And I was surprised and alone just in that. And that was her response. But then I told her, and I said his Hebrew name was YaHuWaH, and her response blew me away, and that's a way cooler name than Jesus. And so I knew right there, that this woman is at least open to the truth. And so really, again, whether, I don't know if it's going to work out with this girl or not, but I'm hoping and praying that it will. But as far as that goes, either way, all praises go to YaHuWaH, all praises to YaHuWaH, and whether that works out or not, it doesn't matter. But the point I'm trying to illustrate is that YaHuWaH will provide everything you need, and even will give you the desires of your heart, as long as you are seeking after him and willing and in obedience to him. He called me out of Babylon, and I left, and I knew that it was a possibility that my wife was going to leave me. I knew that it was, and she did. And I still stuck it out, and I still stayed obedient to this truth and to walking this path, this narrow road. And I believe that because of that, and because anytime you do that, YaHuWaH will barak you anytime. And I'm a living example of that if you are obedient, and if you are sold out to being used for his purposes, he will barak you. He will barak you, not only with whatever it is that you need, but more than that, he will give you peace. He will give you true shalom, and he will give you joy and love, and at a level that you didn't even know possible. And now I have a family in the truth, whom I consider closer than my own blood family. And I never thought that I would have that. It's what I realize now that that's what I've always been searching for, is that family, that that Ruwach family. We're all connected through the Ruwach of Yahushua. And that bond is tighter than any blood. It's tighter than anything of this world. And so I'm just so grateful that for everything that YaHuWaH has brought me through this truth, through this revelation. Throughout my whole life, I see that he was there and leading me up to this point. And now I'm sitting here recording this for you to tell you that he will do the same for you if you just serve him and are obedient to him and his purposes. He will give you beyond what you can even imagine. And so that's my testimony. My name is Mitch, and I hope you all have a Ruwach day, and stay Barak in YaHuWaH and Yahushua's name.